Hello everyone, what's up? It's me again, Junkmonster3, and what do you know, it's finally time for a new update video. I just felt that I really needed to do this update before the stacks just keep growing. That's at least something that happens like when you kind of like forget what films that you've already showed in our previous update videos. But anyway, this is going to be the update video for what? For what? What am I talking about? Well, let's begin with the update video. So this is actually going to be a CD, DVD, and Blu-ray update. I don't usually pick up so many like CDs in general unless it's like a band that I really am a big fan of. But I'm gonna start with those. It's not really. It's from the same band, and there's 4 albums. Let's see here. Coincidentally, I actually had a Bathory shirt on me today for a reason. First Bathory album, namely called just Bathory. Love this band. I mean, most of the stuff. I even like the later stuff as well. I was trying to get a hold of those as well, but was unable to. But really great. And then we have, I believe this was the second one. I can to be totally wrong about this, but Under the Sign of the Black Mark, right there. One of the best like black metal bands of all time, in my personal opinion. And then we have the Return with Bathory. And then the last one is obviously going to be Blood, Fire, Death, which I would say is probably one of the best ones that they ever made. I'm trying to get a hold of the rest as well. They're not really that easy to come across from time to time, but I'm going to look out for those. So yeah. So I'm gonna continue with the DVDs, and the DVDs are gonna be like all of the non-horror titles first, and then I'm gonna move on to the horror titles. So, yeah. First up, we have a film called Kebab Connection. I have no idea what this is about. I mainly picked it up because of the title. So this is pretty much a blind buy. I think I only bought it for like $2 or something, even more, maybe less than that. But yeah, apparently a German film. Then we have Slapshot 2, which I've heard really bad things about because apparently this came out like so many years after the first one. And to be fair, I'm not really the hugest fan of the first one. I think it's a good hockey film, but I feel it's a little bit overrated. But yeah, looking forward to see this one nonetheless. I believe there's also a part 3, which I've only heard bad things about. So yeah, there you go. Then we have the second Sonic the Hedgehog part 2 or Sonic 2, whatever. Not even seen the first one yet, but gonna get to that eventually. Apparently Jim Carrey is really good in those films. Then we have a film from, I believe this might have been an Australian film, if I'm not completely wrong. Don't quote me on that, but this film is called Crime Stopper. Really cool looking cover art. I mean, kind of simple, but still whatever. Like, now when I come to think of it, not really that cool because there's so many like just white background and just that image with the gun. So yeah, why did I say that? Then we have a film from the 50s, I believe, or like the 40s, I believe. Yeah, 40s. This film is called Somewhere in the Night. Yeah, Somewhere in the Night. Also like a blind buy. I try to get a hold of more of those like 30s, 40s, 50s films, but they are quite hard to come across. So that's the reason why I don't pick up too many of those, because usually when I find them, they're just so overpriced. So yeah. Then we have a film called Wild is the word for Wild Wild Planet. I think Wild Wild Planet is the official like title of this film, but this one you can totally say that this is a really amazing cover art. Yeah, this looks like some this kind of looks like something that Roger Corman probably would produce. So wouldn't be surprised if he was actually the producer of this. Well, he wasn't, but it looks like that. It looks like it. Then we have a film called Bad Timing. I believe this is from the 80s, and this is with, wait a minute, Art Garfunkel? Is that the guy from Simon and Garfunkel, I believe? Teresa Russell and Harvey Keitel, so yeah, looks interesting. Then we have a film called The Bronx Executioner. Now this cover looks just horrendous. I believe this is an Australian release, and I believe this might be one of the only like official releases of this particular film. But yeah, I mean the storyline looks like sounds quite interesting, so yeah, that's the reason why I picked it up. Then we have these 3 films. Apparently, I believe these 3 films are directed by the same guy, and apparently there's more films in this series, but I decided to just settle with the first 3 because I've heard that they're supposed to be really really bad off the part 3. So, but the Swan Princess. films. The first three. The first one I've heard is a kind of like an underrated classic because I mean these films are not produced by Disney, and I do really appreciate when other studios really try their best at fighting Disney, so to say. But anyway, let's move on. The next one is called Death Zone: Blood for Blood. Not really sure if that's the official title, but this looks like a typical martial arts type film from probably the 90s. I wouldn't be surprised. So yeah. Speaking of martial arts, the next one I believe is one of the best, not the best, but I've heard this is supposed to be one of the better martial art films, like in the latest, couple of decades. But Ong Bak, I probably butchered the title, but this is with is that Tony Jaa, I believe? Is that his name? Tony Jaa. Yeah, Tony Jaa, that's the name of the guy. I believe there's also two sequels to this one, so if I do like this one, I'm probably going to get the hold of the other two. So yeah, Ong Bak. And then some people might ask me, like, why did you pick this film up? Don't get me wrong, it's an atrocious film. I mean, I do despise this film, but it's just something that just, like, oh, I want to see this again just to see if it's as bad as I remember. Theodore Rex, with this ridiculous looking dinosaur with Whoopi Goldberg. I mean, I wouldn't like suggest anyone else to pick it up. I mainly picked it up because I kind of collect like trash in general. So yeah, there you go. Then we have some sort of like comedy film from the 80s called The Mortuary Academy. I've not heard anyone talk about this one, so could be bad, could be good. I'm not really sure, but yeah, Mortuary Academy. Then we have some more Asian stuff. To be fair, I think there's lots of Asian stuff in this particular update video. So the next one is The Legend of the Evil Lake, and I believe this is from Korean. This is a Korean film, and I kind of collect those Asian Vision releases that is released by, I think it's Noble Entertainment, that label. I don't think they're still doing those releases anymore, which is kind of sad. But I kind of collect those because usually they're really interesting type of Asian films in general. So yeah, The Legend of the Evil Lake. Then we have, well, no need to show you that. I've already shown you that. Oh boy, what should I do with this one? Let's see. Raigyo. Apparently some weird sleazy, like you can tell on the cover, all the really sleazy Pinku films, and I'm trying to get more into those like Pinku films in general because I don't think I've seen too many of those, and I want to be more familiar with the genre and what it's all about. So yeah, this one is from the late 90s, I believe. And apparently this has more like a storyline because of this cover, it kind of looks like just straightforward like a sleaze film and nothing else, but apparently it has some sort of narrative to it as well. So yeah, Raigo. And then this one we have the same type of issue, I believe. Let's see if we can do this. Tokyo X Erotica, by the same director as the previous one. I'm still waiting for another film in this particular like label or whatever. I think they only released 3 of these films, so I'm still waiting for another film by this director to arrive. So we'll see if these are just flat out sleaze and garbage. I don't really know. Could be interesting. Then we have more Japanese stuff. This is a series or like an anime series called Basilisk, with all the episodes in it. Yeah, looks interesting. Some samurai type action. And then we have I'm just laughing so much right now because this is a film that just Disney just refuses to acknowledge that it exists. This is a Spanish release of Song of the South. So now I can watch this all day long without like Disney trying to like take it off my hands, which is really great. And don't get me wrong, I do get the reason why some people say, well, this is a racist type of film. I mean, it has some of those like undertones, but I don't understand like the hatred like for this film because the main actor, like the main character in this film, which is Uncle Remus, he is one of the most likable characters I've seen in a film in quite a long time. So when I saw that, like, oh, he's a really likable character. But anyway, Song of the South, I really enjoy this film. I don't really care about everyone that's talking like controversy about this film. I like the film itself. So there you go. If you don't like it, well, that's your opinion. Then we have some more Japanese stuff. This is another like series which was released in the early 80s, and this is produced by the Toei Animation Productions, or like Toei Animation Studios. Kind of like those because there's at least two other films that I grew up with, which I really enjoyed, and it's gonna show up in this video later on. But Hello Sandy Bell, don't really know what it's all about, but just picked it up because they usually release really interesting type of series and like films in general. So yeah, Toei Animation. So yeah, Hello Sandy Bell. Let's see here. Yeah. So let's continue with the next stack. This is a film called Swan Lake. This is from the early 80s, and I believe this is also produced by the same company that I mentioned before, Toei Animation. Another reason why I really wanted to get a hold of this was that this has the Swedish dub to it, and the guy who makes the dub for the bad guy in this film, John Harrison, in the Swedish dub of it, he's a really great voice actor, and I kind of grew up with some of those like dubs that he made back in the day. So, by the way, Swan Lake, I think this is a really great film. So yeah, there you go. Then we have more Japanese stuff. This is a film which came out like just like 1 or 2 years ago, I believe. But Bell, never seen it or heard of it before that, but looks very interesting. So yeah, I think this might be a. Is this a Studio Ghibli production? I believe could be. Yeah, Studio Ghibli, I believe. No, it's not Studio Ghibli. It's some other company. Oh, never mind. Now it's made us fool of myself. Then we have the film called The Lost Duel, some sort of medieval like knights like fighting to death or something like that. Apparently based on true events, but I take that with a. I don't really take that for granted. So yeah. Now, the next one is another one of those films, apparently. The Northman, which I've heard pretty good things about, but yeah, looking forward to see this one. Looks like some Viking stuff. Then we have a film which got like recommended to me by one of my friends on YouTube, DVD Review Studios, Matt. If you see this, thank you for this suggestion, because I now decide to pick this film out no matter what. Avatar, The Way of Water, which is the second one. The main reason why I was very hesitant to pick this one up was because I didn't really see the reason as to why it would even need a sequel, because of the way the first one ended. I was like, well, then what? What do you do after that? I mean, there's sort of like the scenario with the ending of the first one as to why would they even make a sequel. But I've heard pretty good things about this one, so yeah, I'm gonna check it out eventually. So yeah. Then the next two films are films that. I mainly picked up because I'm like, oh, I want to watch a film which is like like the Mummy films with like Brendan Fraser, like those type of adventure, like action films. You don't really see those films very often anymore. So that's the reason why I picked up these two films that I'm going to mention now. So The Lost City with Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum. Funny thing about Sandra Bullock, I didn't really care for her as an actor for like, I mean, the longest time. But now when I've seen more of her films, I really appreciate her as an actress, and I think she's a pretty good actor. So you can always change your opinion about people. So yeah, The Lost City. And the next one is in the same realm, apparently, like same type of like action or adventure type of film. This one is called Uncharted. I do believe there was some sort of like video game or like something like that this might be based on. I can be totally wrong about this, but looks interesting nonetheless. So yeah. Wait a minute, is that Mark Wahlberg? Yeah, it is. I didn't notice that. Then we have a film which I've only heard bad things about, but I was thinking, well, I don't care too much about like opinions and stuff in general. Like, I mean, sometimes I do, but I don't really take that like as a thing. Like, oh no, I'm not gonna watch the film just because one person said it was bad. But so yeah, the next one is called Tom and Jerry the movie, which I believe really got bad reviews all over the place, but I thought, well, I'm gonna give it a shot and see if it's as bad as people say. Like I said before, I kind of collect garbage from time to time, so yeah. Then we have the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Was gonna watch this in the cinemas, but missed out. And I just waited for it to like drop in price, because before, when it was like new in the store, it was just insane. And like, oh, no way I'm gonna pay that much amount of money. So I think I got it for like at least half the price. So yeah, Super Mario Bros. Kind of grew up with those games in general, so could be good, could be bad. I'm not really sure, and I have no idea if I'm gonna watch this in the in the original English dub or the Swedish dub, because apparently this one also has the oh, actually this has a Swedish dub, a Norwegian dub, a Danish dub, and a Finnish dub apparently. So it could be interesting to see how that sounds. But anyway, Super Mario Bros. Film or like movie, whatever. Then we have some Japanese stuff. No, not this is not Japanese stuff. Sorry, this is a Korean film by what's his name? Kim Ki-duk, I believe his name is. Sadly, I think he passed away like a couple of years ago. I think it was like during COVID or something. Mobius, I believe that's the name of the title, or like the film. So yeah, some sort of like drama film. Then we have a film which I have seen before, but that was like years and years ago. This is by Tim Burton, and this film is called Mars Attacks. I thought it was kind of decent. I didn't think it was as good as people made it out to be, but I still liked it for what it was. So I'm gonna rewatch this and see if I like it even more this time around. So, Mars Attacks. Then we have a mid-80s Christmas film that I'm probably gonna save for next year's Christmas or like this year's Christmas. Santa Claus, the movie from 1985, I believe, with Dudley Moore apparently. So yeah. Let's see here. The next one is a late 90s, early 2000s action film called Strip and Run with Michael Madsen. I just assume this is going to be some schlocky, stupid garbage that might be interesting in some way, but yeah, Strip and Run. So let's see here. The next one is another one which you could probably be in the same category as the previous one I talked about. Bring Him Back Dead, which is a fairly newer film. This is released by Take One, I believe, and some people know that Take One, they usually release really low budget, like schlocky action films most of the time. So it could be really, really bad. I don't really know, but I just hope for this to be at least so bad it's good. So yeah. Then we have the film called Homeward Bound 2. Got the first one, and I got the very original one, which was called The Incredible Journey, which I really appreciated, the original one. I've not rewatched the remake or whatever in years, so I'm gonna rewatch that before watching this one, because I do know for a fact that I've never seen this one or like this particular one. So yeah. Now I can totally see people like, oh, you still buy Disney films and you're complaining about them? Well, that's just my business. Then we have a film called Cowboy Bebop, the movie. Never seen the series, so I might have. Maybe this is a film that for the people that enjoy the series. I've never seen the series myself, so maybe I should have watched the series before watching the film. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll pick up the series before watching the movie. I'm not really sure, but yeah, whatever. Now we come to the two films that I mentioned before. That is produced by the Toei production company. These two I really grew up with, but I grew up with the Swedish dubs, and this I believe only has the Japanese and English dubs. Which I don't care too much about, because the Swedish dub, like that has a particular like official release on DVD, but that release is really horrendous because it's known for having really trouble with like the audio and the sync, which is really unfortunate. But this is Puss in Boots from 1969. This is a really amazing and funny film, which I think more people should give a chance. Even though I think this might be hard to come across, I'm not really sure, but I love this film. I grew up with it. I have seen it so many times. I've never seen it in the Japanese or English version, so that could be really interesting. Yeah, Puss in Boots. And then we have the next one from the same production company. This one also I grew up with, Animal Treasure Island. Now this one I believe was just called Treasure Island or something when I watched it like as a kid, like in Swedish or whatever. And then, like I said with the previous one, this comes with the Japanese and English dubs, and I've never seen that before. Yeah, these two really go hand in hand with each other. These two I really like rewatched all over the time when I was younger. So yeah, that's gonna be interesting to watch. Then we have a film from the mid-90s, I believe, with Tom Berenger, Erika Elniak, and William McNamara, called Chasers, some sort of action comedy film. I pick up almost anything with Tom Berenger in it because I think he's a great actor, a really underrated actor. And the next one we have is a film called Kill Butterfly Kill. Just based on this like cover art and everything that's going around, I think this is a Godfrey Ho film, even though it doesn't say on the back. Unfortunately, though, I should have done my research much better, because according to the back of this DVD, this only has the German dub of it, and doesn't have any subtitles or anything. So that's going to be an interesting film to watch because my German is not very good at all. So yeah. So this is the last stack of the other films, and then after this stack, I'm going to go to the horror titles. So yeah. So the next one is called Eagles Over London, some sort of World War II film. Mainly picked it up because it's that particular label, like the retro films. Retro film, which is released by Studio S, I believe. Is that Studio S? Yeah, I believe it's Studio S that has that label. So this is like number 39, I believe. Yeah, I'm not really sure because it's inversed or like reversed for me. So yeah, 39. So that's the reason why I picked this one up. So now I have all of those releases. So yeah. And the same can be said about the next one, Massacre in Rome. Right there, another one with Richard Burton. Yeah. So another one of those, like I probably told you that before. And that's the next one is the last one that they released, or like the latest one. And this is called The Last Days of Mussolini, I believe. Because it doesn't have like the original title, I believe, on the back of this DVD. But yeah, Last Days of Mussolini, I believe. Yeah, this is with Rod Steiger in it. And he looks very convincing as Benito Mussolini, so yeah. Let's see here. The next one is called. I've seen this one before, but I didn't know this was known as that, like under that title. But Ruckus 2 Ultimax Force. I only know this film for the title Ultimax Force. Didn't know this was supposed to be some sort of sequel, which doesn't make any sense because the original one was taking place out in the US, and that film was sort of like a Rambo film before Rambo was released, which is quite interesting. So if you haven't seen the original Ruckus film, I can really recommend that particular film. This one has nothing to do with that film. It just feels like they shoved that title just to capitalize on the success of the first one. I say success with the particular state in mind because that film I don't think is very well known. So yeah. Anyway, this one is actually pretty fun for what it is, in my personal opinion. So yeah. Then we have the film called I Want to Live with Susan Hayward. I believe this is a 50s film, I believe. Yeah. Once you get a hold of more of those films, this I think is more of a drama film. Never seen before. I always want to see more 50s films and like 40s films in general. So yeah. Then we have a double pack with the films right here, which is Survival on the Mountain and Nowhere to Land. I believe both of these films are made for TV films, but I could be totally wrong about that. But looks interesting nonetheless. Then we have a Japanese film. This is a sequel to a film that I already had in the collection before, Bayside Shakedown 2, some action comedy. Once again, with that Asian Vision label right there, so that's another reason why I wanted to get all of it. Then we have a film which is called Red Blooded 2. And I was thinking for myself, like, where is Red Blooded the first one? Because I'd not even heard about that before. But apparently this is a sequel, like an action sequel to a horror film. Which really made me confused because the original one is called like Red Blooded American Girl or something. And then it's like, oh, this is just called Red Blooded 2. And I'm like, well, why and like what were they thinking when they made this film? But yeah, it looks interesting though. Then we have these two. These films have been talked to death so many times, but John Wick 2 and John Wick 3. The reason why I didn't pick those up before because I already had the first one and part 4, and then you might ask yourself, why did you pick up part 4 before part 2 and 3? Now the reason is because the Blu-ray release, like the Swedish Blu-ray release, where I was told by that company that released it or something that it was only going to be like for a limited time, and then it would go out of print. So that's the reason why I picked up part 4 before the part 2 and 3. So yeah. Then we have the film called Never Say Die. This has Franz Zagarino in it and Billy Drago. I just assume Billy Drago is going to be the bad guy because he always plays the bad guy in these type of like action films in general. So yeah. Never Say Die. Then we have another film. This is directed by Sergio H. Santiago, who's very well known for those like action exploitation films back in the day. And this cover art is so amazing. Raiders of the Sun. Just look at that. That looks really amazing. So yeah, I just saw that image like that when I saw that particular release for sale, I'm like, I need to have this film in my collection. Then we have a war drama film called Savior. Apparently, I believe this is based on the war in old like Yugoslavia back in the day, or based on those events. So yeah, could be interesting. Yeah. Then we have the next one is a film called Spree, which seems to be very obscure because it doesn't really have a whole lot of like ratings on IMDb or Letterboxd, at least from what I've saw, what I've seen. Um, I think this is the one, or is this the one? Yeah, I think this was the one. Sorry for that. Spree, anyway, thriller from the 90s. And then we have a Clint Eastwood film called Heartbreak Ridge. I was able to get this for a really good price. Usually this goes for stupid money, but I got it for like dirt cheap, so I couldn't pass on it. So, yeah. Then we have a film which I really appreciated. This is another 40s film from the early 40s. This is the film called, let's see, what's the original title? His Girl Friday from the early 40s. And this is a really fun comedy film. Some people would say, oh, Cary Grant is really like the star of this film. But I would say Rosalind Russell's performance in this is so amazing and so... She's such a likable character and funny character in this one. So yeah, if you haven't seen that film, and if you're a fan of older films in general, go check that one out. Then we have a film called Between Heaven and Hell. And this is one of those like slip cases or whatever, right there. I don't really know how many of these they've made, but yeah, some sort of like war drama film from the 50s. So yeah. And then the next one is by the same, like it's another like one of those like sleep cases. This one is called Leave Her to Heaven, right there. More of a drama film, I believe, from the 40s, mid 40s. So yeah. So now finally we move on to the horror titles. So first one is Evil Dead Rise, which I really enjoyed. I mean, I would probably say this is the weaker one in the series, but by saying that, I wouldn't say it's a bad film. The main reason why I liked this one was that they decided to have this film like in a different location instead of like out in the woods or something like that. So this is taking place out in the city, so that was quite interesting. So yeah, Evil Dead Rise. Then we have a film which I really appreciated when I watched it last year in theaters. This is Renfield with Nicolas Cage. Now this really reminded me of old time classics like Fright Night and stuff like that. Really likable and funny film. Great horror comedy. You don't really see too many great horror comedies in general these days. So, but this one I would say is really good. So yeah, Renfield. I went into this knowing absolutely nothing about it, but when I watched it, I was like, oh, this is really good. Then we have Wormwood Apocalypse. This is the sequel to the original Wormwood. Sorry, I can't pronounce that. It took so many years, I believe, for this to get released. Not released, but it took so many years for them to make the sequel to that film, because I think that came out in like 2012 or something. So, but yeah, this is another one of those like apocalyptic zombie films, so could be interesting. I'm not really sure if that has anything to do with the original one, if it's just a straightforward like standalone sequel. So yeah. Then we have the newer film by David Cronenberg called Crimes of the Future, which I've heard mixed things about, but Cronenberg is always Cronenberg, and when he goes back to horror films in general, I mean that's always a plus for me. Then I picked up the film by his son, Brandon Cronenberg, called Infinity Pool. Apparently both of these two films are really strange, but that's usually the case when it comes to Cronenberg in general, so yeah. Then we have a Japanese film. I'm not really sure if this is a straightforward horror film, but Doppelganger, right there. This is released by Tartan Asia Extreme, that label. Then we have more of those releases. This one is a Chinese film called Abnormal Beauty, right there. Yeah. Not seen those type of films in quite a while, so I'm really looking forward to seeing more of those. Now this one is another Tartan Asia Extreme release, and this I believe is from Singapore, and I don't think I've seen a single film from Singapore before, so that could be interesting. Now this film is called The Maid. Very simple kind of like cover art, but still very effective, I would say. So yeah, The Maid. Then we have a film which I've heard really like disturbing things about. Apparently I think this has been showing up on some of those disturbing movies lists from time to time. So ever since I saw this film on one of those lists, I thought, well, this looks very like interesting. I don't really know what's so disturbing about it, but this I've not seen this film myself yet, so I'm just gonna make that clear. So I'm not sure if it's as disturbing as people make it out to be. So, Star of David: Hunting for Beautiful Girls. Just based on that title, I just assume it's some sort of like some sort of like prostitution thing or something like that going wrong or something. So yeah. Then we have a film called The Imp. This is from the early 80s. I believe there's another film called The Imp, which was released in the 90s, but this is the one from the early 80s. So yeah, The Imp. Then we have an Italian film from the early 80s. Not early 80s, early 2000s, sorry. This film is called Hardcore Poisoned Eyes. Yeah. Right there. Then we have the sequel to what was that one called? Joyride or like whatever. I'm not pretty sure if that was the original title, but this is Joyride 2. I believe there's a third one as well. So if I do like this one, I'm gonna take a look and see if I can find part 3 as well. Apparently these films are like kind of standalone sequels from one another, so that could be good. Because sometimes it just feels like when you have like an original character in the first film and they bring them back just to kill them off, I think that is just so lazy and so stupid from time to time. So just make a standalone sequel instead, at least some of the time. And that's my personal opinion. So yeah. Then we have The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. This is actually just the Swedish title of it. Look at that. That's an amazing cover art. So yeah. And then we have, I'm not pretty sure if this is like a straightforward like horror films. I just took it for granted because of some of the like the cover arts. Well, wait a minute, I think I've seen one of those films before. Sorry, Invasion of the Star Creatures and Invasion of the Bee Girls. Invasion of the Bee Girls, I now remember I have actually seen before, and I did not care for that film at all. But that was like maybe like 10 years ago, so I might need to rewatch it. So, but the other one, Invasion of the Star Creatures, I've never seen before, but yeah, could be interesting. Then we have a film which I have seen before, and I think this is just called Death Academy. I believe that's the original title, but this particular release just says School Night Massacre. This is a Swedish horror film from the early 2000s, and I've seen this at least 2 times before, and it's such a stupid and bad film, but it's still quite funny for how ridiculous it is as well. Yeah, could be interesting to rewatch this. If I remember correctly, this was, I mean, it was kind of terrible, but it still had its charm as well. So, and I'm still glad some people try to make horror films in Sweden. Usually, they turn out to be really bad, but I'm always open for like newer Swedish horror films. Then we have the film called The Death Kiss with Bela Lugosi. I used to assume this is like some weird bootleg because if you see that image right there, the DVD logo, if you see that type of logo on a DVD, it's probably a bootleg. And this, I believe, though, is a really old 1932, so that could be interesting. Yeah, it's completely lost track there. Then we have a Camp Motion Pictures release with these are the films by Todd Sheets, and those films are Zombie Bloodbath trilogy. So all 3 films in this trilogy. I mainly picked these films up because I've heard that these films have pretty good blood and gore effects, but I just assume that the storylines are going to be really, really bad in these films. But yeah, whatever. Zombie Bloodbath trilogy could be cool. Then we have a film from, this is another Korean film. Ever since I saw the cover for this, I thought, well, I really need to get a hold of this at some point. Acacia, whatever. This is from 2003 and from Korea. Some sort of ghost film, I believe, so could be interesting. Acacia. Then we have a film which I already had before, but I believe it was like on some really old VHS release. This is the film The Rift. This is actually the German title, I believe. Yeah, the German title right there. But the original title is The Rift. So yeah, some sort of like horror film about underwater creatures or something attacking people. So yeah. So this is the last stack of the horror DVDs, and after that we're gonna move on to the Blu-rays. So yeah. First up, we have this double pack, Tales of Voodoo, which has 2 films in it. I'm not really sure if I can say that, but if you see the title right there, The Arpist and The Devil's Express. And I had a really funny story about this one because apparently The Devil's Express is known as something else. And I had a story like that. I talked with my friend in the UK about that, and it's like there's no way there's another release, because apparently some new company has released that on Blu-ray, and it told me, well, the negatives were destroyed or something, and it was really hard to come across. I'm like, well, but I have an official release of that film before, which was really funny, because at one point I thought I was going to make a fool of myself. So, but anyway, Tales of Voodoo, two films, the Arpist and the Devil's Express. Why I say the Arpist is because, yeah, I'm not really sure if I can even say that on YouTube nowadays. So, yeah. Then we have the next one. This is also Tales of Voodoo, two films, and this one we have Ghost Ninja and Primitives. Primitives I actually also recently picked up on Blu-ray. Yeah, not really sure about that, but Ghost Ninja just looks like a typical Godfrey Ho film, so not really sure. Then we have the next one I've heard bad things about, but it's a Neil Marshall film. This one is called The Lair. Like I said before, I have heard bad things about it, but I thought for myself, well, Neil Marshall is always Neil Marshall, so gonna give it a chance either way. Then the next one, I'm not sure if this is a straightforward horror film, maybe it's more of a thriller, but this film is called Superstition, not to be confused with the Superstition from the early 80s. This is from the early 2000s. The one from the early 80s I can highly recommend. This is one really, really underrated horror film in general. Like I said before, I'm not sure if this is a straightforward horror film, but if it is a thriller, whatever, it still looks interesting. So yeah. Then we have a film which I didn't really have too much interest in picking up when this was released, because I was assumed that this was going to be some stupid remake. But I heard good things about it after a while, and I thought, well, I'm going to give it a chance anyway. Wrong Turn, the 2021 one. I'd really appreciate. I mean, I really like the first one, and I think the second one is quite good as well. Part 3 and 4 I really despised, and I did actually pick up part 5 and 6 as well before this. And then you might ask yourself why, but then again, I've not seen part 3 and 4 in quite a long time, so maybe I'll have a new appreciation for some of those films. So yeah, Wrong Turn, the 2021 one. 2021, whatever. That sounds stupid. Then we have Hell's Gate. I'm not sure if that's the original title. Apparently this is also known as 1111. This is from the early 2000s as well, I believe, 2003 or 4. Yeah, looks interesting. Then we have a film called Breathing Room. Now this looks like something that's kind of like similar to like Cube or Saw or like the film Vile. Like some people stuck in some sort of building and need to get out of there, and there's probably traps and stuff around the place. I kind of like that whole setup, even though it's like kind of like over and done with at this point. I made it so many times right now, but yeah, I have a soft spot for some of those films. So yeah, Breathing Room. Then we have a film by Umberto Lenzi called Seven Blood-Stained Orchids. Yeah, Umberto Lenzi is always Umberto Lenzi, so it could be good. Then we have the film called The Pack, and I do believe I already had the remake for this one. So when I picked up the remake, I actually thought I was going to pick up this one. That's the one that I picked up, but unfortunately it wasn't. So now I have both films, and I'm going to check this one out before watching the remake. So yeah, The Pack. This is from the 70s, I believe. 77, so yeah. Then we have some releases by Something Weird Video. First up we have She Freak. Don't know nothing about it, but looks like some really weird sleazy stuff from the 60s. And then we have the film called The Amazing Transplant, right there. Yeah. And then we have a double pack with Mondo Bizarro and Mondo Fredo. Just based on those titles, I used to assume that these are like documentary style films in general, like Mondo films, if you will. So yeah. Then we have Monsters Crash the Pajama Party Spook Show Spectacular. I used to assume that this is something they used to put on like in the background or something, like trailers and stuff or something like that. I'm not really sure, but yeah, this is one of the weirdest cover arts I've ever seen, with so much text like shoved onto it. Yeah. The last Something Weird video release that I picked up was Booby Trap and The Takers, exploitation films from the 70s, I believe. Yeah, could be interesting. So yeah. And the last DVD, like horror DVD I picked up, is Alien from the Deep. This is a German release, which fortunately enough has English Is this? Yeah, in English audio. I was just afraid that I just picked up like because it was like some German release, but yeah, looks interesting. I've seen some clips and bits from this, and it looks quite hilarious. So yeah. So the next couple of titles are actually not all Blu-ray films, but these are the things that I picked up from the sci-fi convention this year. So first up, we have a film called Lost Faith from the early 90s, and this looks like a really low budget, like micro budget, like type of action film. Looks really fun and really hilarious just based on the cover art as well, so I just need to pick it up. Then we have Robo Vampire 1 and 2. I didn't even know they made a part 2 of that, but I used to assume that's probably something else with a completely other title. And I've heard this cover is very misleading with like Robocop on the front cover. So yeah, it could only be like a Godfrey Ho film, so yeah. So then we got the Blu-rays. The first one that I mentioned before was Primitives that I also had in that double pack. This is one of the last like cannibal films that I tried to get a hold of, which was from that particular era, like the 70s and 80s. So yeah, Primitives. Filipino production, I believe, so yeah. Then we have a film which I have seen before, and this is kind of a so bad it's good type of film. It's quite fun. Attack of the Beast Creatures, right there. So a really amazing cover art. Then the next one I already had in my collection before, but I got to meet Bill Moseley. And I got him to sign this particular release of The Devil's Rejects right there. You see, he signed it right there. So that's really cool. Yeah. So now we officially move into the Blu-ray section of this video, and I really need to speed up because I've been talking for more than 40 minutes right now. So yeah. First up, we have a film called Sonny Boy from the late 80s with David Carradine. Heard some really fun things about this one, so yeah. Then I've actually already had the first 4 films in this particular series, but the Tremors 7 film or like 7 movie collection on Blu-ray. Really appreciate the first one. The second one was kind of so-so, and I'm not sure if I've even seen the third one yet, but the first one though was really amazing, and we're looking forward to see the other ones as well, so yeah. Now let's see here. The next one is a film which is kind of like blind buy as well. This one is called The Tank. Know nothing about it. Just the cover art is quite uninteresting, but yeah, could be interesting. Then we have finally I picked up this. I don't say finally because I mean I just wanted to get a hold of this because this is one of those that was probably going to go out of print super fast. But Saw X, one of the best films I saw last year in the cinemas. And definitely one of the better Saw films in general. I mean, this is way better than Jigsaw and like Saw 7 and 6 and 5 and even 4. I wouldn't say it's as good as part 1, 2, and 3, but it's definitely up there. So yeah, Saw X or like Saw 10. And then we have Shogun, which is like the series which was popular back in the early 80s. Sorry. Yeah. That sounds straight. That was my stomach like, oh, maybe my stomach doesn't like this this series. Then we have the sequel or whatever called Pearl. Now this is the sequel to the film X, which I thought was good, but I thought it was a little bit overrated. But I've heard they're supposed to make another film after this one, which takes place in the 80s, I believe. So that's going to be interesting. So, yeah, whatever. Pearl. Then we have an action film with Jennifer Garner in it called Peppermint. This kind of looks like a typical like rape and revenge type of film, but I'm not really sure. Looks interesting nonetheless, so yeah, Peppermint. Sorry for saying like, oh, it looks interesting. I mean, that's just, like I say that about almost every title in this update video. Then we have a film by Antonio Margheriti called 7 Deaths in the Cat's Eye, released by 88 Films, so yeah. And then we have a film which I've always wanted to get a hold of. This is one of the more serious Jackie Chan films, Crime Story, which was released in the early 90s, I believe. So yeah, right there, yeah. Then we have a film which I'm not even sure if this should have been like in like some sort of like, yeah, whatever. This is kind of like a comedy horror film, I believe. Eating Raoul from the early 80s. And this is directed by Paul Bartel. It has Maria Voronov in it as well, so yeah, those two usually like showed up in like the similar type of films, so yeah, or like in the same film. Then we have another like Arrow release. This is the film called Two Witches. I admit to you that I picked it up because of the cover art. You should never do that, but just look at that. That looks very interesting. So yeah, Two Witches. Then a film that I wanted to see in the cinemas, but when I was gonna see it, I couldn't find it anywhere. I'm like, why did you remove this film from like the cinemas? What? Why like that? But this is a Korean film called Project Wolf Hunting. Yeah, like I said, I really wanted to see this even ever since I saw like they were gonna show it in cinemas, and then they just decided, well, Young Monster 3, he really wants to watch this film, but we're not gonna let him. But yeah, Project Wolf Hunting looks very like blood. I mean, apparently this is very bloody and very gory, so that's another reason why I wanted to get a hold of it. Speaking of blood and gory, I used to assume this is very bloody and gory. This is the film The Incredible Melting Man. I already had this one before, but I used to assume there was some stupid, crappy VHS transfer might have been cut as well. So yeah, that's the reason why I picked up this particular release. So yeah, The Incredible Melting Man. Now, the next one is another. Sorry, I just got some weird fucking hair in my mouth. That's the reason why I did that. Now, I'm not really sure if I can say this either, but you can just judge for yourself if you see that title right there. Apparently some really low budget German horror films from the 90s, and they're both short films. So I don't think they run for more than 45 minutes or so. So yeah, F the Devil and F the Devil 2, Return of the Effer. That's my way of like censoring it. I never censor things in general, but you never know when it comes to YouTube. Then we have a film that I always wanted to see because the storyline sounds so bizarre to me. Shredder Orpheus. Apparently about some skater going back in the future to try to like kill off some serial killer or something. This could have only been made in the 90s apparently, but yeah, Shredder Orpheus. Not sure if this is the same. Yeah, it's the same cover right there underneath the super cover as well. So yeah. Then we have another one which I might have had before in like some strange like DVD release. I'm not really sure, but The Laughing Dead. Oh, sorry. I probably need to do this. The Laughing Dead. This is from the late 80s. And I believe this is like a Filipino production, if I'm not completely wrong, but yeah. Then we have a film which I've always wanted to see. I was thinking about this film for so many times, like, oh, this is a film that really needs a release, like a DVD or Blu-ray release, because this is one of the very few slashers from the 80s that never got that treatment. So finally I found it, and I'm so glad I have it in my hands, because I had this film in at least 2 different releases on VHS and 1 DVD bootleg of it. So I'm really glad to have this in a proper release this time. So Fatal Games from the early 80s. Very underrated slasher film, really like atmospheric as well, I would say. So yeah, about this javelin throwing maniac killing people on campus. So yeah. Then we have another Vinegar Syndrome release. These are Mexican Gothic, the films of Carlos Enrique Taboada. Yeah, I never heard of the guy before, but I'm just gonna see if I can throw these. I'll throw this out, but see if what type of titles it is. Oh, why should it work this time around? Just because I'm on camera and this won't work. You know what? I give up. I give up. If you want to know more about this one, just type it in on Google and you'll get the information as to what films are included in this. Sorry for that. Then we continue with another Vinegar Syndrome release. This is from China, I believe, from the early 80s, called Ghost Nursing. Yeah, right there. And then we have Spanish, not Spanish, but I believe Mexican horror films from the late 80s, early 90s. Vacation of Terror 1 and 2. Yeah. And then I picked up Vampires and Other Stereotypes from the early 90s, I believe. So, yeah. Looks very interesting. I think this is the second Visual Vengeance release I have, actually. So, yeah. And the last film or films for this particular update is going to be Day of the Panther and Strike of the Panther. So yeah, sorry I've been mumbling for almost 50 minutes right now, so sorry for that, but hope you enjoy this particular video, even though it got really long. And not really sure what's the next, like, I'm not really sure what the next video is going to be. It's probably going to be a top 10 list or a review video, which I haven't made in quite a while. So but anyway, keep your eyes open for those particular videos, and see you in the future. So we'll see you next time. Bye bye.